Hi, I'm Jennifer Butterfield.
Hey guys, I'm Morgan Simpson, licensed Texas realtor.
And we are really excited because today we are doing a little live Q&A to kick off our mini series on YouTube at FIREalty on first-time home buying. And so I'm super excited for some of you guys to be able to join us. And Morgan, I know we've been working on this since what, like August, or I think even July is when we started the conversations around this. So can you talk a little bit about kind of where we came up with some of the ideas behind this and what we're hoping to accomplish by launching this series?
Yeah, sure. It all came up really organically, right? I saw some of the stuff that you were doing online, and obviously we've kind of known each other for a little while and been acquaintances and stuff, and then kind of got to know each other. And I saw that you were just kind of trying to add value for people. So really for me, it was like reaching out to you to see, hey, is there something here that you can do to add value for my clients or people who want to be clients, people who want to own a home, and they just can't seem to get the financial steps on the way or right or start or whatever it is. And so we got to talking, and through conversation, one of the things I knew for a while that through the years, just by being in the industry and doing this full time, there's some things that I've picked up, some wisdom and stuff that I really wanted to spread to others, and not just my own clients one-on-one, but to all kinds of people. I mean, to people who may never be my clients. They may have another realtor, and maybe they have a fantastic realtor, but sometimes things slip through the cracks. As an agent, as a realtor, we're only one person. So sometimes we forget to mention things, or, on the other side, sometimes a buyer doesn't retain everything. So we just kind of started talking, and we were looking for an area that we felt was maybe the most underserved in regards to knowledge and info, and video format for the masses. And it seemed like first-time home buyers were the ones that were the most underserved, but also needed the most information because they're doing it for the first time. And then I think the rest from there is kind of history.
Yeah, absolutely. And for anybody tuning in outside of Austin, Texas, Morgan and we met in high school, actually. And
Yeah.
so like almost, I feel like it was at least 15, almost 20 years ago. And, I think that witnessing Austin as it has changed so much, and also being a part of our millennial generation where so many of us, graduated high school and then saw all of these headlines about college graduates can't find jobs, or whatever, because of the 2008 housing crisis, and, I think today we're in a position where, we saw the boom in 2021, and interest rates are about to start going down again. And so, according to the Fed. And I think there's a lot to be said for like it being a good time to buy, and I think I have so many friends too, that friends and clients alike, that are both, like, I've been renting my whole life, like no one in my family owns property. How do I get into buying a home? How do I even know if I can afford a home? You see these memes on Instagram or Facebook that are like, oh, the bank said I can't afford a $2,000 or $1,200 mortgage, so I pay $2,000 in rent, and it's like, well, so let's talk a little bit about, and Morgan, I think budgeting obviously is a great solution, but can you talk from like the real estate side a little bit of what people can expect, number one, and like how are people able to determine? I know we plug a lot of this in our series, but while we're doing this Q&A, this is the question I think we get the most. So
Right. Where to start, can I afford a house? All that kind. And, I think what's probably even worse than that may even be a bigger problem, that because it's not on our radar, is the folks that just assume that they can't. They don't know anything about it. And like you said, if there's not that generational kind of pass down in their family or in their community where it's like, hey, our parents owned a house, their parents owned a house, this is kind of what we do kind of thing. And there's no guidance there, it can be pretty intimidating and scary. And that's anything that you don't have a whole lot of information or background on. Right. If I decided that I wanted to start flying helicopters, I wouldn't know where to start. I'd probably be pretty intimidated. Right. But so let's get to, the answer to that question. What do you do? Where do you start?
Right.
We talk about this in the video series. My opinion has always been there's two right answers to the question. I'm okay with either one. You either go directly to a trusted realtor that that's either a friend, acquaintance, someone who's referred, someone that and trust, or the second best would be someone who knows and trusts them has referred you to them, right? And look, if you don't know anyone, start interviewing, meet some people. Yeah. But so there's either that path and the right representation on the buyer side, what they should be doing, or what I do is I say, okay, great, let's go ahead and schedule what we call a buyer's consultation. And now what's great with technology and everything, we can do them virtually, and then nobody has to leave their house. We can knock it out in probably 20 minutes. And what we'll do is we'll give you information on that. Like, we're going to give you a breakdown of the process. And then we're also going to ask what your goals are, what you're looking for, kind of get to the true why. Here's like a little peek behind the curtain, getting to the true why of why do people want a yard? Is it because that's just what they think, or they have a dog, they have kids, they love the outdoors, all of those type of things. A good realtor is going to sit down and listen to you and collect the information. They're going to provide information back to you, so you have an overview of the process. And then the other thing that is really great that they should be able to do is provide some resources of where you can start on the lender side, right? And that brings me to my step 1A or 1B, however you want to put these. Yeah. The other step you can absolutely take, especially if you bank with the local credit union. I'll give a quick shout out. UFCU is a good local one here in Austin. I like them. But there's several. And even if you don't, you can start with your bank, or of course, if you happen to know a loan officer yourself, a mortgage broker, you can go to them, go ahead and get pre-approved, pre-qualified, where they will look at all your finances, all your information, and then they're going to get back to you and say, hey, here's what your buying power is. And so either one of those is great and acceptable. You're already moving that rock downhill, if you will. But yeah, I'm fine with either one. The thing is, whichever one you choose, the second step is going to be the other one, right?
Right. Yeah. And I think too, it's like, I think the exciting thing, and hopefully people who are listening are able to pick up on, like, you could go down to the bank today and go talk to somebody. You could reach out to a realtor today. And it's like, I think so many people allow a fear of rejection getting in the way of starting the whole process. But it's like, actually, that has to be a part of the process if you ever really want to. Because I think it's like, well, okay, so how do I know what goal I'm going to be aiming to mark if I don't, go talk to somebody to see where I stand, And I think
a lot of people too, you're 100% right, but expanding on your point, I think a lot of people too, and look, I've been this way about certain things. I think we all have. You have something on your list you want to do. You want to know more about it, but you kind of don't want to talk to somebody. You don't want to alert the media, if you will, about it. So the other thing that is so great is there are opportunities where you can just do this online. You can get a lender's quick app link, and you can go online, you can fill out the information, and then you can see kind of where you are without having to have a whole. Now, some people say, hey, I want a person. I want to talk to a person. I want to go over my goals. I want to see what they suggest. Well, that's the good thing, is we have that too. There's some really, really good local lenders who say, I don't care. You don't have to apply at all. Just call me if you want to talk, and we'll talk it through. And so I think in today's age, we have some really unique advantages where you can do it online if that's your thing. You can talk to somebody. You can go to a bank in person. You can call them. I mean, there's so many different ways to get it done.
Totally. Well, and I think too, it's like, okay, so people are, the whole process of this is to demystify the home buying process, right? And so, and we talk a lot about this. We go into a lot more detail in some of the videos, especially the first initial ones, because this is like the part of the process we're highlighting in those episodes. But can you kind of talk a little bit about what the qualifiers are? You know, because I think a lot of people are like, oh, I need to have like $50,000 saved in the bank, or you know, I need to have, and home prices are, you know, here in Austin, like at minimum, you know, $350,000, $400,000, and I need to have at least 20% of that saved in the bank. You know, so can you talk a little bit about, you know, what qualifiers are, you know, lenders looking for when they're pre-approving people, but then also like as a realtor, when you're doing a buyer's consultation, like what are you helping prepare your clients with whenever you're taking them to a lender, kind of a thing? So
yeah, absolutely. So they're going to look at credit. Obviously, they want to see where your credit's at. Now, the thing about that is the credit score you think you have to have is potentially not what an actual workable credit score means. And I mean that in your favor as a buyer. For things like FHA, which is a federally backed financing program where there's a set interest rate and you can get in as low as 3.5% instead of 20%, 25%. You know, a credit score of, the last time I looked, I think 620, some even say 600. So if you're in the sixes, it's probably workable. If everything else is reasonable for you to work getting FHA, right? So a lot of people, and some people have no clue what their credit score is, right? I mean, they have no clue. So that's the first thing that's one of the first things they're going to look at. So they'll look at credit, they'll look at income, and then they'll look at reserves as far as, you know, what kind of cash do you have in the bank? And what a loan officer is going to do is, a good one is going to look for pitfalls of what could, you know, make it fall apart as far as your qualification, but they're going to try to find a creative way to get you approved, right? And that could be for something people talk about, well, what if I don't even have 3.5% down? Or what if I, you know, I don't have the 10% down, whatever it is. There are down payment assistance programs, right? Assistance programs where you can get in for very little money, very, very little money. I mean, we're talking zero down. Now, zero down doesn't always mean zero out of pocket.
Right, because you have closing costs,
and that kind of thing. But the cool thing about that is, you know, something like a new builder right now, especially in the market at certain communities, they still have inventory that they started building 6 months ago, 8 months ago plus. And so they're providing incentives. And sometimes those incentives mean that you're paying no closing cost, right? So that's when things get a little, you know, case by case basis, because you can't just think, well, hey, if I don't have a 700 credit score and 20% down, I can't do this thing. That's not true. That's not true. There's a lot of situations where buyers are getting in to these homes and they're paying very little out of pocket. So it's going to be credit. They're going to look at reserves. Like I said, they're going to look at income. But, I wouldn't get, as far as before you talk to a lender, I wouldn't get too caught up in something like debt to income ratio, because
Right.
you probably don't see the full picture of your finances unless you're a financial expert professional and have that education.
Hmm.
You may not know what your debt to income ratio is. And by the
Right.
way, that's okay, because that's all these guys do. I mean, they
Right.
sit there and they look for ways to get you approved, and they play with those numbers. So those are kind of the three things they're going to look at, just so people have the heads up. But again, unless you just have, a really, really awful financial situation, and even then, it can be beneficial to meet with a lender and see how you can start putting things in place to remedy that, through the next 6 months, year,
Hmm.
down the road.
Yeah. Well, so I think we've covered a lot on, like, some of the hangups that potential new buyers might have about getting into the market, and we cover that in like masterly detail in the mini series. But let's talk a little bit about what to expect throughout the whole series. So
Mhm.
we've kind of covered the first couple episode topics: pre-approval versus a buyer's consultation, choosing a realtor. So from that point, and I'll start us off by just hitting a couple of the episodes, and then I'll turn it over to you, Morgan, because it does get more complex. But I feel like we've been able to really, again, demystify the whole process. And we talk about what to look for in a neighborhood once you're pre-approved, and how to find the right house, how to go about looking at different properties, what metrics to look at, such as like crime ratings, school ratings. It depends on what the purpose of the home is, and what your plans are as an individual or as a family. And then we kind of go into what I think is the most exciting part, which is the negotiation process and getting
Mhm.
into making an offer, and what that looks like, and we even touch a little bit on different market conditions and how that may impact the negotiation process and having an offer be accepted. And Morgan, I'll turn it over to you to walk us through kind of what happens from that point.
Yeah, and just to reiterate what you were saying, this series is really the purpose of it is to almost stand alone, acting as a guide, starting all the way from, hey, I've got the thought, the goal, the dream of owning a home one day, to getting your keys and moving in. And then we even have a couple of things about, stuff to do that your first year of ownership as
Yeah.
well. But so we go into all of those items, as far as, like we just said, we went over the first couple steps, and we can't get into every single step on this, but I'll kind of give a high level overview, right? So you get to the point where you're pre-approved, right? And this is when you've either had your consult or you haven't, but either way, you're going to get back with your agent, your realtor, and say, hey, look, this is what I'm pre-approved for. Remember all the things I was telling you I want. Now we have to put them through the lens of that criteria, of price criteria, right? And that's going to limit you some. I mean, depending who you are, and most first-time home buyers don't have an endless budget. Most people don't. But depending on who you are and what your buying power is, that's going to cause some limitations of some areas wherever your market is, right? So you're going to be able to look at a map and say, if you were here in Austin, most of us can't afford Westlake, or whatever those areas are. So we like to think of it as a kind of a process of elimination versus selection. But the first part of finding a home is figuring out where you want that home to be.
Right.
So, like we talked about, you're going to find the location. You're going to start eliminating other locations off your list, whether you're doing zip code or subdivision or school system, school district, whatever that is, right? So you get to the point, you find your house, right? So that's what we're there. Well, let's pretend we snapped our fingers and you found the location, and you found the house that checks the boxes.
Mm-hmm.
This is when you're going to go back to your realtor, or you're going to convene with your realtor, and they're going to run what we call an industry comps, which it's just data on comparable sold properties, properties in that area that are somewhat apples to apples comparisons. And then if you're ready to make an offer, you're going to start looking at these numbers and strategizing, okay, what do we think this home is worth? And you're going to base your offer off of that, right? So obviously there's a million steps and back and forth and stuff with that, but let's pretend we snapped our fingers again. You've made an offer. You've gotten to the point seller has accepted it.
Yeah.
At this point, you're going to have some. Now, let's clarify. We are speaking in Texas real estate terms.
Right.
So if you are listening from out of state, I have noticed a lot of states have similar things they do, but keep in mind, there's different terminology. There's different ways they do their contracts. But if you're with us in Texas, this is going to be very applicable for you. We go in contract, and that's when you're going to have a due diligence period. So we call it an option period here. This is the time to get your general home inspection, to also get any other inspections as far as if you saw something, your realtor saw something, something was disclosed on the seller's disclosure that you already have a concern about, you're going to get that trade out there as well. So it could be your roof, your AC, that, whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
If not, you're going to have your general home inspection. The purpose of that is to be an overview. The inspector is not an expert on any one thing. They know enough kind of about everything where they can raise red flags for us. And then we can go in and do further due diligence on that item. And a lot of times what happens is I always tell people there's kind of 3 stages of this.
Mm-hmm.
The first stage is, did we find anything that no matter what the seller agrees to, we just want to bail. We want to leave, right? That's why we have that termination option. We can terminate the contract. Buyers can back out. We can get our earnest money out, or out a little bit of a fee for the option fee, whatever is dictated in the contract. Mm-hmm. The second level of it is, are there items on the inspection report you get from the inspector that you would be okay with if the seller contributed to remedy the situation, right? So something would be, I'll just use an easy example. Hey, the roof needs to be replaced. We're not buying the house if the seller doesn't contribute to that, right? So at that point, you would go back to the seller and start that renegotiation. Because, by the way, it's newfound information. This is not something you went into the contract knowing, right? Mm-hmm. The third level of this is more just negotiation strategy. There's times when a buyer gets an inspection report and says, look, between you and I, we're pretty happy with the deal. We got a good enough deal pre-contract, right? We did good pre-contract negotiations. We went in with a price where we honestly feel we're even a little below what market value is, maybe. And they look at everything and they say, we're kind of playing with house money here. So that's when you would actually just be kind of retrading and renegotiating based on that situation. But really, it's those first 2 that most people focus on. And look, I tell people all the time, I'm constantly having to remind buyers, even on new builds, on new construction, I always highly, highly, highly suggest get that general home inspection, because every single one that I've ever had has a list of stuff that comes back.
Right.
Everyone, and so even on new homes, I mean, we had one where the builder forgot to put on the gutters, and it was like, and fair enough, that I'll take some of the blame for maybe me or the buyer not catching that before the inspector did. But these are things when stuff's moving, you got all this going on. You just never know that things can slip through the cracks. So you want that third party that you're hiring and paying for that has no connection to the seller, and they're showing up to work for you, right? As a buyer. And so after we get past all of that, right, and we renegotiate what we need to negotiate, then we focus on getting everything to the lender as the buyer. Lender will do an appraisal and some things like that, not to get too far in the weeds. But really from there, we're just navigating, pushing the paperwork back and forth so we can get to closing, get it funded, and get you your keys.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that we have created kind of a what to expect in your first year of owning a home too in the last episode. So it's a really exciting launch, and I'm so excited that we've partnered together for this, and we plan to do other series too. So after the first time home buying series, we're going to start talking about your first time selling a home and potentially even investing real estate and what to do to build out a portfolio. So we're both very excited. Again, the launch kickoff is going to actually take place Monday, this coming Monday, February 5th at 10 a.m. Central Time. And that is going to be on the YouTube channel at FIREalty Texas. So please go subscribe and follow our Instagram page. And we are so excited for the kickoff. And I'm sure we'll check in with another Q&A after a few episodes have been released, and we look forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I'm really excited about it, and this was the first one we did together. Yeah. But we took the time. I mean, we did, like you said, we started mid last year.
Yeah,
and we took the time to really put our efforts and thoughts into this. I think these series will get even better. I think I'm guessing if you went back and watched episode per episode, even if you don't know us, you would say, oh, they're getting a little better at this.
Yeah.
So we're hoping to continue to improve on the product for folks. But I think it's content that is worthy of listening to, not just for the information. I think we make it enough. It's not too dry, right? Yeah. We're here to just have a conversation. Right. We plan, we prep, but we don't script, right? Yeah. We plan, we prep it, but we're not scripting things out. We want this to feel like you're sitting in a room with us chatting.
Yeah.
So
exactly. And we will be posting links on our own personal and professional pages. So please tune in that way, or just go through YouTube and find FIREalty Texas. And we will see you guys on Monday for the premiere.
Thanks, guys.